Alright, I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about how much I love Drizzle and also how you can optimize a dashboard because dashboards are deceivingly hard. You know, you think it's just a few numbers, it's not that hard. But in fact, basically every time you load up a dashboard, there's a shit ton of math going on in the background and reading a bunch of data from the database, like a bunch in many cases. And you end up with problems like this. Page unresponsive. Alright, well, let's try again. And maybe, so the range is the last 30 days. Maybe let's try the last 7 days. There we go. Okay, so we were actually able to load the page successfully. So this is the old version of my dashboard. This one's actually live on Vercel. It's hosted and it's running. And this typically results in better performance. So you can imagine what it was like dealing with on localhost trying to develop this, because on localhost your server is running at the same time, and so your computer is basically the server, but it's also the browser running all the code on the front end, which I try to keep really light, but either way you end up with a bunch of load. So if we go over to the calls page, we can see all the calls analytics, and let's just go filter. I just want to show you something. So if we filter by my client here, and then let's set the date range to this decade. Okay, you saw how much trouble I had with this decade, or with the last 30 days. This decade is everything from 2019 to present, which is actually only about 2022 to present because there's not that long of a data history. But let's try it. Okay, so ready and go. And okay, I can still close that. Oh my gosh, it actually worked. This is incredible. So basically we filtered by the location and then we selected this decade and it actually worked. I'm amazed that that worked. I don't know if we go call duration by direction. Holy shit. And you can see we have some issues where this component reloads when we change this parameter. So this is actually a URL parameter. The current chart that's selected, these charts are URL parameters. And so when we change it, it's changing the URL parameters, which causes basically everything else to reload unless we have specific query parameters to, or specific keys for our data to prevent that. So now we see this is 11 hours. I don't know why, because it said it was 6 hours before. So you can see there's just some fuckery going on, and there's a ton of queries in the background. I'll just show you. So, all right, let me show you my new dashboard. So this is the new dashboard, and it's just on dark mode, so you can set the setting, but dark mode does look quite a bit better. And if we filter, if we select the parameter to be this decade, remember, this is on localhost right now, so this is going to be running all of this data aggregation on my machine. So let's try it. This decade, and boom. That's almost as fast as on the server, and we got full suspense, and yeah, it's fucking cherry. I mean, this is still loading. Sometimes, like, especially on localhost, you get, like, infinite loading with suspense, where, but there we go, there it loaded, and we have the same duration. So now, let me show you, if we change the call durations by location, or by user, then only this component is going to reload. This table and this chart are going to stay the same, because they are the same. And now it's basically frozen. There we go. I'm not making a very convincing case, but I promise this is way better than it was. So I'm going to show you how this is set up in the background. So basically what we have is our suspense component. So we have a pie chart loader and a bar chart loader. This just awaits the data and then feeds it into our chart. And then under this chart fetcher, so here's what it looks like. So what this used to be is how context is right now. And I'm in the process of switching this over. But basically what we do is we look at the query parameters and, oh, my bad. So what we do is we look at the query parameters and we see which chart is being requested. So new user, new contacts by source, one value by source, etc. And depending on the one that's requested, we run this function. And so this function basically figures out how to show this based on the viewer. So we have support for different viewers, like with secure sharing. And then we create our where conditions and we push onto this as we need. Actually, in this case, we're just doing everything at once. And so we're joining a bunch of tables that in some cases we don't actually need. And then this is the real killer. Look at this. After this query is executed, we go through for each row and like filter for that, which is so dumb because you could super easily filter for this in the database. I mean, this was just like trying to get it to work, but that did result in quite a few performance issues, and so now we're going back and fixing those. And so that's how it used to work, and here's how it works now. So basically, instead of having multiple functions for each query, it's one function, and we do some magic with Drizzle. So this is where Drizzle comes into play, and Drizzle just fucking rocks. So basically what we're doing is our main table for this calls is messages. We have an array of intermediate joins in order to get the data that we need. And then we have our where condition. So by default, our where is just the created at is between our from and our to date, and then it's the type of call. And then what we do is if it is a customer viewing it, then we want to make sure that we're joining on location installs and making sure that all of the locations we show, or all of the message we show have a location ID, where in location installs, the customer ID is the viewer ID. It's kind of a mindfuck, but yeah, like I've just found that SQL is just a mindfuck in general. So anyways, then what we're doing is instead of filtering after the query, we're adding this into the query. So if we have a minimum duration in the query params, then we're going to add this SQL where part to the where clause. Then where conditions, direction, user location, etc. And I actually just realized that if we're checking for the tags, then we need to make sure that if we haven't already joined the table X contacts, then we're going to set that to true, and then we're going to push onto our joins table. We're going to push X contacts, and this is going to be an inner join. And so we're going to check that the X message ID is equal to the contact ID, or the message contact ID is equal to the contact ID. And that's going to push that join onto our query. And so here, for call volume by locations, instead of this being a whole function with a bunch of repeated code, we're pushing on our location data join because we need the location name. We're pushing on the columns to filter by or to query by. So we have the date, the name, and the count. And then we have our table name, our joins, our where conditions, group by, and order by. And this is the magic. So we have this function, run full query. So this takes in that whole thing. The selections, the table, the from table, the joins, where, all this stuff I just said. And then we construct the query. So for each join, we do query dot left join or inner join on that condition. And then we filter down the where conditions to make sure none are undefined and push those. And then we add the group by, limit, and order. And then we return that data. So we run that query and then return that data. And then finally we format it. And yeah, I did not know you could do this shit. And this is way faster than it was before. Like, you notice that shit in development, because previously in development it was about as fast as it is in production right now, which was very slow, with a lot of bugs. And so now it's pretty fucking solid, and there's like very little code duplication. Like, the only code duplication really is maybe this like truncation or this date grouping. But yeah, so this is duplicated a little bit, I think, but like overall it's pretty fucking good. Yeah. I don't know, dude, and it was so fun. Like, I remember today I was just sitting there like, fuck, dude. Like, I was looking at my to-do list, and I'm like, fuck, I have to do this thing that I don't want to do. And I dove in. I was like, damn, this is hella fun. And I didn't even think I was going to be like doing this, adding all this like logic to like make the query just one thing instead of having separate functions. But when I realized I could do that, I realized I could make it way easier on myself to build the query and run it. Um, and that makes it like basically, if you can make something a component, you have to think about it, because if I wanted to add another query, now it's extremely easy. Now I can just like really quickly do it. But if I want to change anything about how the query works, that's going to be much harder. And so you kind of have to make sure that you're like, you actually want to do what you want to do, you know? But yeah, obviously I have indexes on all these columns, basically. All these important ones where we're joining stuff and filtering, those have indexes because that really helps with speed, like really fucking helps. A non-indexed query versus an indexed query is like a 10 times speed up. Like it's so insane how much faster. It's more than that. It's so fucking fast when you have indexes. So anyways, that's the video. Kind of kind of hard to follow, I'm sure, but yeah, the moral of the story is go out, optimize your queries if it's something important, you know. But yeah, anyways, thanks for watching.